Alright, PointyStarVio here, doing my deck profile on bad.deck, also known as Ancient Gears, that I have ever so slightly upgraded with the new, semi-new box from Primal Origin to make them less bad, but they're still bad because Geartown is a sad face now, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and get started on the profile. First, running 3 copies of Ancient Gear Golem. It is an ultimate Ancient Gear Golem power bond deck, so running the 3 Golem lets you get to him faster because he is the only essential card for that fusion summon. 2 copies of Gadjiltron Dragon. You can run it at 3. I prefer 2 because having him in your hand when you could have a Golem instead is sad. So I run the 2 because you can recruit 2 from the deck, but 3 is a bit overkill. 3 copies of Knight. This is the card that you'll be going into the most frequently. It's just your standard beater for the deck. Normal summon it, put a little bit of protection, buy some time. Yeah. 3 copies of Ancient Gear Box. So he is what lets you plus, which is very essential for this deck because a lot of the deck is just about going minus. So you can, for animals, yeah. You can take Duality, go into Ancient Gear Box and search out a Knight, or you can summon the Gear X, search out the box, get a Knight. So just good ways to get those other 2 Ancient Gear monsters that you need in order to be able to summon the ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. 1 Prisma. I've run him at 2 in the past because he's really good when you're playing a Fusion Gate version, because you actually dump the Golem into the graveyard for the secondary effect of Ultimate. Dropping him down to 1 because of this next card that I have started teching again. So the eventual plan is for this to be 3 copies of King of the Swamp, just because having the freedom to sack it, search a poly is better than being restricted the way that Beastking is. This is the old card that I was running from when I first built this deck. So yeah, King of the Swamp, what most people know is... Huh?
Is the level 4 worth it at all, or do you only go...
No, the level 4 doesn't help at all. You would never really exceed with this because you most of the time want Gear X, so has to be a machine. King of the Swamp, fusion substitute monster, pretty generic in that sense. You can also sack it to search poly to your hand. Yeah, that's about it. So this brings your total count of cards that can pretend to be Ancient Gear Golem or are Ancient Gear Golem to 7, which is a number I like to shoot for. Last, rounding out the monsters, is the 3 copies of Cyber Dragon. This opens up a lot of plays when you would have a bad hand. You can power bond, basically consuming your entire hand to get Chimeratech Overdragon, which in some cases can be enough to get you game. You can also have him for Overload Fusion, which can steal games from defeat. So yeah, Overload Fusion, banish machines from the grave, summon a dark. You use that to get Overdragon. 2 Power Bond. Drawing it dead sucks, but you want it because it's your win condition. So yeah, 2 copies of Power Bond. It's poly for a machine, doubles the original attack. Poly, I hate running it, but it's recovered me a few times because King of the Swamp. So you run poly because you run King of the Swamp. 2 copies of Pot of Duality. Consistency. Man, does this deck need consistency. Really good when you can hit a gearbox with Duality, because since the cards that you have revealed are still technically in the deck, it triggers the effect, which is great. 2 Castle. This, I've found, has become part of the main engine of the deck now that Geartown has been kind of stepped on, because it allows you to just amass over time tribute fodder in order to be able to tribute summon a Golem, at the same time as being that stable plus 300 to whatever you have. And 2100 from the Knight, that's not bad for beating over your opponent's stuff. So yeah, 3 copies of Geartown and 1 Terraforming. You used to run this as a field spell deck, running 3 Terraforming, 3 Geartown, sometimes a Fusion Gate. I even at one point was running a Ghost Trick Mansion in order to prevent damage from Power Bond, which worked pretty well at the time, but that only worked while the ruling was that by game rule, if a new field spell card is activated and overrides an existing one, the existing field spell card was destroyed. And so because Geartown's wording is specifically, when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, now that the ruling has changed to field spell cards are sent to the graveyard when overridden, because they can only be overridden by yourself, the effect no longer triggers the way that it used to, where you would have Geartown, Terraforming, search Geartown, set Geartown over Geartown, and special summon out your Gadjiltron Dragon. I should probably mention the effect for people that don't know. So Geartown is when you would tribute summon an Ancient Gear monster, you can tribute for 1 tribute less than the original cost, and if this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, special summon an Ancient Gear from your deck. So this guy recruits Gadjiltron Dragon because Golem can't be special summoned, but it kind of sucks now. But you run it because it's an Ancient Gear deck, and the being able to tribute summon for 1 less can be important. Okay, final spell cards in the deck. 3 MST, because MST, and that's like the one way to kill Geartown, and limiter removal. I shouldn't have to explain that. 3 copies of Stronghold the Moving Fortress. This deck sucks at special summoning, so you run him as tribute fodder for your Golem, for your Dragon, and also makes Gear Gigant, so that's decent. Magical Hat's probably the kingpin card of the deck at this point, at least of the main deck. Magical Hats, so what you use this card for is when your opponent enters their battle phase, they don't even have to declare an attack yet, you can activate this card, target a monster you control, flip it to set if it's not already there already, and then special summon 2 spell cards from your deck, face down defense position as monsters, and then shuffle the 3 on the board. So basically gives you 2 and 3 chance of being able to protect that monster that you had. And then the trick to it is that the spell cards you select with it are Geartowns. And so, since they are technically on the field, so they are destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you get your special summon of Gadjiltron Dragon off of this card. So this is a really easy way to instantly recruit 2 Gadjitrons from the deck. Very, very fun. Bottomless, Torrential, going on to the extra deck here. 2 copies of Ultimate. 3 is overkill. You never ever use 3. That's just the way that it is. But it's the kingpin card of the deck. When you summon it with Power Bond, it is 8800 attack, almost always enough for an OTK. And as an added bonus, if it dies and is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Gear Golem from the graveyard, which is a lot of fun. Ancient Gears, wow, didn't even mention this. Ancient Gears universally, except for Knight because he's a Gemini, when they declare an attack, your opponent cannot activate spell and trap cards until the end of the damage step, which is what makes Ultimate very good, because you can't walk into Mirror Force, you can't walk into Dimensional Prison. He says that those cards cannot activate. 3 copies of Chimeratech Overdragon. You run the 3 Cyber Dragon. It's kind of mandatory that you run the Overdragon. He works. Overload Fusion, Power Bond stuff. 1 copy of Pair Cycroid. It's a machine fusion deck. Why not? 3200 attacking directly is a lot of fun. 1 copy of Skypalace for the very odd case where you would be able to actually summon him. I also occasionally will side metal Reflect Slime if I feel like I need the defense, or if I need to go into Skypalace or something like Gustav. But yeah, Skypalace, you have level 10s, might as well. Googly-Eyes Drum Dragon. He is a way to get that second Gadjiltron Dragon into the grave if you want to blow up a Geartown and summon another, and then you've got a 4000 and a 3000, fairly menacing. Gimmick Puppet of Strings. I won't say that it's good at field removal, because it's not. It's decent at field removal. I feel like this is a kind of underutilized card, but it's a way that, say if you limit or removaled and you don't want to make Googly-Eyes, you want something a little bit more stable, you can make her, so that the monsters don't die, and the rest of this doesn't really matter. It's fairly generic stuff. Bad.deck, yay. So yeah, that was my deck profile of Ancient Gears. Hope to be putting a lot more stuff up on the channel now.
I had one question I really wanted to ask him was, why doesn't he play cards like discard outlets or more of the magical hats or more such as trade-in?
So, trade-in has gone in and out of the deck a couple of times. The reason that I have settled on not using it in the deck is that there's really no point to having your level 8 monsters in the graveyard. I suppose, for the sake of deck thinning, if I ran 2 or 3 trade-in, now all of a sudden I'm running a 38 card deck, a 37 card deck. Meh, it could still be dead drawn, it could still be all sorts of stuff like that. If there was a card that I wanted to get into the graveyard, it would be Box. And so if I had a way of consistently getting Box into the graveyard, then I could potentially be running the Ancient Gear Workshop, which is yet another way to trigger Box's effect, which is if you have an Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard, add 1 Ancient Gear monster to your hand. Box came to my hand, I search another knight, and I got my plus. But since trade-in would only be really affecting either Golem or Gadjiltron, I guess it was okay with Gadjiltron, could validate the 3, and when I tested it wasn't really working the way that you would think it would. There are other level 8 decks where your level 8s work great in the grave, but you need Golem in your hand, because you need to power bond from the hand or from the field. So, yeah. In summary, I don't want them in the grave, so I don't run trade-in.
To add a bit more of my own 2 cents, the Ancient Gears also are kind of, well, you can play very little graveyard support, so the idea behind playing trade-in is that your monster, you don't want it in your hand. Ancient Gears are one of the few decks that want level 8s in the hand. Most times if you're playing...
Ancient Gears.
I'm trying to think of some recent examples, like Dark Lords back once upon a time, Dragon Rulers, they want blue eyes in the graveyard.
Gimmick Puppets. You ditch all of your stuff into the graveyard because it all works in the graveyard.
And you can't even use cards like Soul Charge because, like, this guy right here can't even really...
He cannot be... Well, he can't be special summoned except for the fact that there are 2 cards in real life and 1 card in the anime that can special summon him. Okay.
But
so it's like in the end, like the deck does, you know, it's a very OTK based deck. Originally, some things that we all started in ways. I had to play a deck that was cute. The better man had to play a deck that was the best. Matthias was over there trying to do. He would try to do meta stuff, but who knows what he was doing half the time.
He played stall a lot in the beginning.
A lot of stall. He played Exodia Final Countdown F board.
Oh yeah.
Battery alert, guys! We're approaching the end.
So,
thanks,
we
guys.
had so much of the history with Pointy Star. We'll do a live stream soon.
So,
Tell us what you think and
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Machine decks. Machine decks are fun. Check them out. I hope to do more info about machine decks in the future because they are kind of my jam.
Watch
so
out
yeah.
for the Better Man Super Heavy Samurai Sus because they're coming.
Super Heavy Samurais.
And they're gonna kick you.
Catch you later, all.